Ladies and gentlemen, we do thank you very much for your attention, and now we invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Welcome to our top travel destinations. I am your host, Kevin Flanagan. I have been editor of the weekly travel news column in the Sunday Independent and the Fine Wine and Food Guide, and I am here to use my decades of experience to help you know exactly where to stay, eat, drink, shop, and explore when visiting the world's top travel destinations. So sit back and enjoy the wonders of travel as we take off on our magical journey together. Welcome to Kevin's top travel destination, and this week we are visiting Slovenia. I believe Slovenia is a hidden gem, a truly wonderful country. And I was very lucky to be invited to attend the European Food Summit, which was held in its capital of Ljubljana, or the Dragon City it is wonderfully named. I spent 3 days in the capital and explored the rest of the country in a couple of days on either side of that visit, and it was truly memorable. I'd love to give you a snapshot of what this country's like, a taste and a feel in the short period we have on this podcast, so you can make up your own mind as to whether you'd like to visit this place. Where is it first? Well, if you imagine the map, if you have Italy, it's just to the west of that in the north of the country. Austria's above it, Hungary to the northeast, Croatia to the south, and a short coastline with the Adriatic to the southwest, which stops it from being a landlocked country. Slovenia has been invaded, being situated so centrally many times, and it only regained its independence in 1991 following a brief 10-day war with Yugoslavia, which was breaking up at the time, as was the Soviet Union. And it has flourished since it broke away. It has become democratic, it joined NATO and the European in 2004, and has been booming ever since. I actually could not fly directly to Ljubljana because Ireland does not have a direct flight. So I flew to Venice and was picked up there and taken for the 2-hour journey to Ljubljana. You can also get a bus or a coach, and you can go to some of the cities we mentioned earlier and find the direct link, either a flight, bus or train. The capital, Ljubljana, was crammed with these journalists and celebrity chefs and dignitaries from around the world who were gathered to celebrate food. And for a few days, Ljubljana, in particular, and Slovenia in general, became the global capital of all things culinary, and no better place. We were staying in the 5-star Grand Hotel in the Old Town on the banks of the Ljubljana River. It's below the castle, and it's where I would suggest we start our journey together. So let's stand in the central part of town, and the first thing, as I take you by the hand and show you around, you will notice how clean it is. Ljubljana has a reputation really second to none for its greenness, its environmental purity, and you see it straight away. Everything is recycled, everything is cleaned up, people do not leave messes. It's very impressive. I find Ljubljana reminded me both of Dublin and London. It's modern, but it does remain true to its Renaissance and Baroque heritage. And as we stand here in the old town, you will see there is this extraordinary old yellow cathedral right behind us, dedicated to St. Nicholas, the famous Santa Claus. A good place to start. After you've had a quick look over the cathedral, follow me as we go over what's called the Three Bridges, one of which is the Dragon's Bridge, which gives its name to the city and is festooned with these very impressive, scary dragons. And it's here that I would suggest, if this is morning time, that we stop at one of the many wonderful patisserie shops. And let's try a bit of potica, which is sweetbread, nuts, and dip it into your coffee, your cafe latte, and look around and you'll see just to the north the market. It's an old market, both indoors and outdoors. You'll find covered areas there. The old market indoor area was crammed with extraordinarily rich tapestry of shops, and certainly the best indoor stocked fish stalls I've ever come across. An array of these seafood and mussels and mollusks, which we were later, luckily enough, able to taste, as well as the wild boar, which is a real traditional dish. But this whole central area around the river and the market is incredibly chic. There's artisan shops, there's leather goods shops, bookshops, and of course restaurants, bars and coffee shops of all levels and types, from Michelin star down to your basically fast food takeaway. But what I immediately recognized in Ljubljana was the lack of tourists. It is as yet undiscovered, and I would take this opportunity to go there. What I saw instead were well-dressed and, I have to say, well-heeled locals parading around on a Saturday morning, going shopping with their family. The place really reeked of culture and, dare I say it, money. So we had a great time in the old market square. We tried some of the traditional pastries and the traditional foods, and some of the chefs had created dishes specifically for the food summit. We then took a walk in the Tivoli Park. I remember there's a hot horse burger stall there, which, believe it or not, sells hot horse. I didn't try that. You've got the Prazeran Square, which is this rich Baroque feel to it. And then if you come back around in a loop, you'll come back to the Three Bridges from the other side. And you can then decide to go up to the castle, which dominates the city. You'll see it up above, and it sort of beckons you. Now, some hardy souls actually walk up, but there are many hundreds of steps, and you will earn your coffee at the end of it. I took the vehicular, which makes it a lot easier to access. And once you get up there, you will have 360-degree views of Ljubljana, and it is well worth the ride, I assure you. Some of the local dishes: Carolinian sausages, strukla, the sweet dumplings, Slovenian cuisine potica, this nut roll, permuruska gibancha, which is this layered cake. All of this was washed down with some of the fabulous Slovenian wine, and more of that later. So Ljubljana itself is a place where you can eat, sleep, dine, drink, and take in its rich pastels of history, Renaissance, Baroque and medieval. Part of the city is pedestrianised, and there's a quiet, very cultured vibe about it, which I really, really enjoyed, even though we stayed out late on that first night and were carousing, and we had some great fun with some of the Italian journalists in particular. But we did get to see the rest of Slovenia. Ljubljana is a fabulous place to spend a couple of days, but when you get outside of the city, there are some things that will knock you over. They are so beautiful. And the great thing about Slovenia is that it's so small that nothing is really more than a couple of hours in a car from the capital. For example, Lake Bled, internationally renowned. It's jaw-droppingly beautiful. There's the island church of Mary the Queen, which you can actually, and I would suggest you do this, is hire a boat and row out to it. It's not very far. Or you can visit the castle there. It literally hangs on the side of the cliff. It's straight out of Game of Thrones. And then you've these old towns like Piran, which came under the occupation of the Roman Empire, and then Venice came in and took it over, and you can see the vestiges of the architecture and the culture from both of them. And all around is the Julian Alps, with the mighty Mount Triglav dominating it. And if you move a little on, there's so many other lakes: Lake Bonija, which is near the Italian side of Lago di Focine, and the River Sorca, which has emerald waters, and you can experience kayaking as we did, and rafting. Anywhere is within this short drive. I personally loved going to eastern Slovenia, places like Prasama, where you've got this 13th century cave castle. And I loved visiting the wine countries of East Kamnik, Savinja, an alpine wonder. these sloping vineyards with the mountains above and the cool winds that come in to give the wine this particularly chilled flavour. You've got so many other things to see. The Lagar Valley, the Pellene, home to the sheep herders. You've got this extraordinary rich culture of sheep's cheeses. We visited many, many wonderful restaurants that had Michelin star status, and you could enjoy there. Particularly dish I remember is stag, washed down with some of the local spirits, and of course the dumplings. And on one of our trips, we actually went and visited two very young and trendy cheesemakers who've been using tunnels in the Alps dug during the Second World War by the Italians, and they've been putting their cheeses, just like they do with Roquefort, deep into the caves where the cool weather allows them to mature and the cultures to grow. The range of food is extraordinary. I couldn't quite get over it as a foodie myself, and having edited a food magazine, and the local emphasis on this is our product. We grow this. We make this cheese. We make this honey. We make these sausages and these salami pâtés that were just so tasty, and they had that authentic, real feel for local food that's been made with love. And then don't get me talking about spas. The culture of spas really merits a podcast, which I'll do separate to this. Just enough to say that there is a thermal spa tradition and a healthcare tradition that goes back centuries, and you will be able to enjoy 2 or 3 days of complete traditional spa treatments that will invigorate you and get rid of all the stresses and strains. And I think that was the one thing I really loved about Slovenia, was it hasn't yet been taken over. When you go, as we've talked in other podcasts, to places like Rome or Paris, there's a tension in the air because there are so many people gathered there. And that is exciting, but it also slightly drains. Ljubljana and Slovenia have yet to encounter that problem. They have a quietness, a peacefulness that I really found refreshing. On the last night, we were then gathered, these people from around the world, at a gala dinner for the European Food Summit. And the top chefs from France and Germany, South Africa and America were there to cook for us. Some chefs were voted, they're given their accolades. And we all agreed, as the toast flowed, that the real winner of this summit had been Ljubljana in particular, and the greater Slovenia in general. Its food, its wine, its culture. I'd make sure you visit Slovenia and Ljubljana. You will not be disappointed, and I think you will agree with me that it is certainly one of the hidden gems of Europe, if not the wider world.